Welcome back, everyone, to a new episode of Goober Games, the series where I look at a game every goober loves and see if it's actually good or not. And boy, are we in for a treat today, as we are truly scraping the bottom of the barrel and covering an Ubisoft game, Far Cry 3. Ubisoft and I have a rough history. I despised what I played of Skull and Bones, Far Cry 6 was incredibly boring, and I have a personal vendetta against the entirety of the Assassin's Creed franchise. Some people love Ubisoft, and some people say they've fallen off. And I chose this as the next Goober game because I don't believe they were ever even in a position to fall off. And what better way to test that theory than to play the one game they made that everyone loves, Far Cry 3. There will be spoilers, and let's get into it. The biggest reason I do not like Ubisoft is because there is almost no in-between for their games. They're either way too simple, like how there's no sword or flintlock combat in Skull and Bones, a pirate game, or they're stupidly complicated and put a hat on a hat. In Assassin's Creed, instead of staying with the gimmick of playing as different assassins throughout different time periods, they tack on playing as that person's descendant in our future and reliving his life, virtually adding nothing. I am a person playing a video game about a person playing as someone else. And even in the in-between with Rainbow Six Siege and The Crew, they're either mediocre enough to be forgettable, or they add a new operator everyone hates and they have to spend time fixing. All of this is to say that Far Cry 3 is a golden example of how even in their prime, they needlessly overcomplicate things. At first, you think this is a game about a bunch of normal people getting stranded and trying to survive on an island inhabited by pirates, right? There's so much opportunity there for a great game. That's like my worst nightmare because, you know, I'm kind of a giant pussy and wouldn't last 2 minutes. But as it turns out, that is not all. It turns out that not only do these pirates live here, but this one island is the global financial district for human and drug traffickers. Okay, upping the stakes, I guess, that's cool. But also, the lead pirate's boss owns the island next to it, and you need to take him out too, even though he didn't really even do anything to you, because you literally don't see him until the third act. Oh, and not only do the pirates live here, but a bunch of freedom fighters do too, as well as the tribe of people native to the island, led by the main pirate's sister, who takes you in as one of their own because there is a prophecy that you, a white man from Southern California, will descend from the heavens and lead these natives to freedom by wearing their tattoos. Oh yeah, and by the way, magic is real. It is so unnecessarily complicated and literally turns into Uncharted at one point. What does this plot gain from Vaas and Citra being siblings? Skydiving and landing at the wrong place at the wrong time is good enough, but no! Ubisoft had to overcompensate for their narrative impotence by having a little bit of everything. They just had to pour a little bit of soda from each of the different fountains. But you know what you get when you mix all the soda flavors? A nasty waste of money. The best part about Far Cry 3's story is the 30-minute live-action short they released with McLovin, which leads into the game, but even that is just torture porn. Yeah, the opening is pretty good, until it gets ruined by Vaas literally just letting Jason run after killing his brother. It would have made way more sense if Vaas caught them trying to run and Grant died in the chase. But in the actual game, everyone hypes up Jason at the camp because he escapes, when he was allowed to leave. I do like how the definition of insanity line relates to Vaas repeatedly trying to kill Jason and it never works, but that is undercut by the fact that, again, Vaas isn't the main villain. Every good thing about this story has shit surrounding it. Yeah, helping Hoyt undercover to gain intel is cool, but then he makes you torture Riley, and that should be a surprise because he died earlier, except it's not remotely surprising because he died off screen, and right before you see him, they play a tape of you guys landing on the island to make sure you remember he even exists in the first place. I will say, it is pretty cool that the pirates don't know who Jason is, and since he's the only white boy on the island, they call him Snow White. Until the Goobers playing poker with him, a white guy, can't connect the dots as they're telling the story. But fuck it, let's talk about the main point people love about the story. Yes, it is true. Far Cry 3 told a story that only video games can tell. The problem is, it is not a good story. Sure, Jason feels the same way we do and becomes insane like Vaas, but one, it's literally anything but gradual. He goes from being upset by killing someone to shooting up a pirate camp in 5 minutes. Two, if Jason is gonna end up almost exactly like his brother Grant, then his arc feels redundant since we've already seen the outcome. And three, if the story is just gonna hold up a mirror and say, hey, you like violent video games, then I have no drive to play it. Oh, that's the message? It's fun to kill people in video games? No shit, dumbass. Tell me something I don't know. I'd rather play a game that's just fun and tells a unique story. Even fucking Call of Duty can have a good story at times and is just fun. They don't need to say, wow, don't you relate to the guy shooting people because you like shooting people? And like I said, Jason's mental decline is anything but gradual. Not only would it be more interesting to see him actually struggle and snap from increasingly morally difficult tasks instead of just turning into an action hero, but he is incredibly well adjusted to not only this entire situation, but seeing his brother's brains get splattered across the ground. In fact, every one of these characters are stupidly well adjusted. We have no reason to care about these characters because they're not human beings. None of them are traumatized or affected by this story at all. The worst case being Keith. He is sold into sex slavery and repeatedly violated by this guy, and only shows any signs of emotional damage whatsoever in the mission where you save him. When he gets back to the boat, he literally just says, hey, don't tell them what happened to me because it's embarrassing, and is completely fine. Real fucking tasteful, Ubisoft. If anyone should cover this topic, it's you. Buck is one of those characters where he's a horrible person who has a lot of charisma and you love to hate, but he has one of the worst designs I have ever seen. Imagine if I walked around shirtless with a chest tattoo that says swag in big bold letters. Willis is awfully American to the point of parody. Daisy doesn't give two shits that Grant died. I feel like... Bro, can you back the fuck up? Anyway, this guy just exists to die. At least Hoyt has some charisma considering they just tossed him in at the end. Dennis is cool, but a complete meat writer for Citra, who herself is okay, I guess. She's kind of the face of my least favorite part of the game, that being all the magical Uncharted ripoff stuff, but as a character, she's pretty flat and unoriginal. And lastly, we're hopping back in the Jason hate because fuck this guy. He's a genuine dumbass, he has Redditor dialogue, his voice acting can be rough at times.
What the hell? Lisa.
He has no reason to kill Hoyt after he finished off Vaas and thinks Riley is dead, and Citra isn't interesting and not worth staying for.
Who have I become?
Oh, shut the... I'm so sick of this Drake, motherfucker! And I know what you're probably thinking. Carter, how could you say this game has bad characters when it created one of the most iconic video game villains of all time? Did it, though? Does Ubisoft own this character? Because with his boss Hoyt being the main villain, his show-stopping performance, and his grand total of 20 minutes of screen time, it feels like they rented this character from someone else. I obviously know they didn't, but let's give credit where credit is due here. Michael Mando, the actor behind Vaas, is a fantastic actor. Anyone who's seen Better Call Saul will tell you that. The world stood still when Nacho Varga said, and you know what else, Hector? I fucked Lalo. So it shouldn't be a surprise to hear that there would be no Vaas without Michael Mando. He's said in interviews that the role he was auditioning for was a 6'6", 280-pound stoic sociopath, and he went in and did his own thing, and they created Vaas based off of his audition. If it weren't for this man, you'd spend 2/3 of Far Cry 3 fighting Debo, and I wholly believe this entry would have only been as successful as the first two if Michael Mando didn't carry it on his back to a 9 out of 10 from IGN. Because the gameplay ain't saving it either. There are only a few things I like about it. I think the tattoo sleeve being a visual skill tree is a cool idea, and the stealth is pretty cool but incredibly rudimentary, to the point where there were a few times I wanted to pull off something a little more complicated in a stealth encounter, but the enemy AI was just too stupid for it to work. This gameplay loop is comparable to Rugburn. It feels so half-assed because they just plop you in the game with a tutorial that teaches you how to shoot, hunt, gather plants, and restore radio antennas, and they don't even tell you what all the buttons on the controller do. Some of them are obvious and don't really need to be explained, but every game under the sun with driving mechanics uses a different button for the handbrake, which would have been a nice input to know before I jumped out of a moving car. A good and replayable tutorial doesn't feel like a tutorial. In Batman Arkham Origins, you learn every need-to-know mechanic and then some in the first mission. But it doesn't feel boring or tedious because Batman isn't learning these things, he's stopping a breakout at a prison. Yeah, you learn how to web swing in Miles Morales, but Miles is stopping the Rhino. Even in Doom Eternal, you get sent to a training room to test out new weapons when you get them, but you're there for 2 seconds and now have immediately expanded on the game's greatest feature, the gameplay. I would have preferred no tutorial at all, because the fact that Jason is learning the same thing things I am at the same time makes it way more apparent how boring it is. And on top of the terrible Ubisoft trademark trailing and NPC defense missions, they ruin their few good concepts that actually fit in this game. Lighting up drug farms with a flamethrower sounds so cool until it takes forever for the plants to burn, you get bombarded by enemies, there's barely enough ammo to get the plants to catch fire, let alone kill those enemies, and when they finally do catch fire, they burst into flames and can easily drain your health. I love sniping missions, except for the one in Far Cry 3 where I need to defend my helpless friend who has no sense of self-preservation and frequently gets killed by someone who's off-screen. It's super cool, you get a wingsuit and get to glide to the neighboring island, except for the fact that the wingsuit barely functions in the open world and the island you glide to is only about 2 city blocks worth of ocean away. I would bet money that these two landmasses only count as 2 separate islands during high tide. But the mission that best exhibits Ubisoft fumbling the bag is named Island Port Hotel, which includes almost getting killed by Vaas, finding your way out of a burning building, and escaping pirates by shooting them with a grenade launcher mounted on the back of a truck. That's so many cool ideas, how could they have possibly fucked that up? Well, for starters, Vaas had the brilliant foresight to not take away your weapons before trying to kill you, so the game could go on longer. Great job, Vaas. Jason can't jump 6 inches in front of him onto scaffolding, despite the fact that he can rip bullets out of his arm and go on with his day, and the whole mission is tainted by the first-person perspective. It's so annoying to navigate across these balance beams and find your way out when you can only see like a fifth of your surroundings, and you can't improve it with an FOV slider. And they somehow managed to make shooting a grenade launcher from the back of a truck lame by making it difficult to aim because you're in first person, Liza can't drive, and this is the bumpiest road on the planet. To put this into perspective, they couldn't pull this set piece off even though Uncharted 1 did it over half a fucking decade earlier. You have to be on the exact right tile for a lot of things like climbing or looting bodies. Every boss fight except for one sucks, and it's because it's the only one that's not a glorified QuickTime event, and the enemy variety is incredibly limited. You fight knife, RPG, and Molotov enemies, and people with rifles, snipers, and miniguns. And that may be a good variety for a hand-to-hand combat system, but since you take out every enemy the exact same way, they all blend into this gray mush of laziness. And just for fun, let's see how many bullets it takes to kill this guy. Okay, so we're gonna mag dump this pistol into him, and we're gonna dump another mag into him. Okay, now we're gonna switch the sniper, and 1 round, 2, 3, 4, 11, 12, 13, 21, 22, 23. Okay, 23 shots and like 4 pistol mags to kill this flamethrower guy. And they've really tried to save their asses with the last combat encounter. They shoehorn in this mission where you save Riley because Hoyt, a very spiteful man, decides that he's gonna do a favor for the guy that killed him and tell him that his brother is at the airstrip so he has a chance to save him. Everybody take notes, because that is great character writing. So you fight off the people there, Riley pilots a helicopter, and you shoot out the side of it while he literally just circles the airfield even though you're supposed to be escaping. And they seem to try and recover any hatred you have for this game by making literally everything blow up so it'll be the last thing about the game you remember and you'll think it's a good game. My fucking stomach hurts, I'm getting angry. And one final reason for why I hate Jason Brody is who he's supposed to be. The badass, freedom-fighting, wingsuit-wearing, wisecracking, island-liberating action hero who has fun killing people. This guy is a knockoff, wonder-bred Rico Rodriguez. If I'm gonna be an invincible badass who takes down enemy fortresses and liberates settlements over and over and over and over, then at least let me do some Mission Impossible goofy bullshit. And fixing antennas to unlock the map is so repetitive and annoying with awful climbing controls that they should have just had the map unlock where you go, like in Ghost of Tsushima or something. And then fixing the antennas instantly unlocks the wider area as well as fast travel. But since you can fast travel anyway and climbing the antennas is such a pain, I literally just stopped caring a third of the way through and raw dogged the traversal. But even that was annoying too because the cars have the structural integrity of a juice box. There's a location called Bad Town. There's a suburban home on top of a mountain. The ambient jungle noises are cool until you realize the monkey sound effects are literally the same ones from Lego Indiana Jones. And there's no on-screen indicator for fall damage besides seeing your health bar go down. There's no stumble animation, no grunt from Jason, no blood on the screen, or anything at all that would catch your attention and warn you that you took damage. So to wrap this up, do I like Far Cry 3? No. Does it have anything of value to say in its plot or writing? No. But is it a good game? No. And frankly, I don't give a fuck if it ever was. Whenever a game doesn't hold up, people always say, well, it was really good when it released, and I don't give a fuck. It does not matter how good it was in 2012. It only matters how good it plays right now. Because guess what? You can never ever play Far Cry 3 in 2012 again. And most great games aren't dependent on when you play them. Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, 4, Max Payne, Super Mario Galaxy, Alan Wake, Resident Evil 4, Super Meat Boy, Psychonauts. All of these games I have played for the first time in the past 2 years, and they still hold up incredibly well because they're good fucking games. Far Cry 3 is a 2.5 out of 10. I have no clue how a game this rotten got popular enough to even be on my radar as a Goober game. I hope Jason Brody goes back to the United States and dies in prison. And I hope every developer who worked on this game is just a little embarrassed of what they created. My opinion of Ubisoft has shattered, and I don't know if you noticed, but besides the intro and final thoughts, this video only has 4 sections, and that's because it's really hard to dive deep into a game that's completely shallow. And the boring-ass, shitty dubstep soundtrack isn't going to fix that, Ubisoft, you motherfuck! Uh-oh.